Well, Mr. Fish Whisperer here, once again on the banks of Sandy Creek. You see that newfangled device you got there on my forehead? They call that a head camera. I'm not quite sure about these head cameras, but you know, my wife, she wanted to get me one of these because she says you're gonna drop your phone in the stream one of these days. I almost did too. In fact, the other night I was putting I was making something, a bunch of rubber bands and some cords, and she said, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I'm making a thing to hold my phone so in case I drop it, it don't go in the drink." She said, "Just hang on here. I got something for you." So, got a Christmas present. A little bit early, but I think it's going to come in handy. So, we'll see. I'm going to walk up here quietly because there's some other guys up here fishing. I don't want to disturb them. All right, so Mr. Fish Whisperer signing out for now. Bye. Well, Mr. Fish Whisperer here. Trying my luck. See if we can get a steely or a brown or something like that. Pretty nice out. It's Groundhog's Day. And Puxatawny Phil says spring is coming early, which I'm certainly okay with that. Here on the banks of Sandy Creek, temperature about 32 degrees. We had a little bit of rain that helped melt some of the ice off of these banks here. See if we can get some action here. You know, I was thinking about going to the UP this summer. We went up there last summer, visit a couple friends, and flew into this airport. Now, you've never flown into a UP airport before. It's a whole different experience. You see, because you fly into an airport where you know it's not a connecting flight to anywhere else. It's somebody's end destination. So we get on this plane and we fly from Detroit to the UP. Beautiful flight. Beautiful flight. Sky was clear. Plane doesn't fly very high. Only about 10 of us on this plane. Not a big plane. And this airport we pull into, well, you know, the terminal building, it looks like a couple double wides put together. And when you pull up there with your car to pick people up, they got a sign there. It says, for the cars, don't park in the runway, because the runway and the parking lot is kind of like right next to each other. So there's not much of an airport there. It's got one flight coming in and one flight going out. That's all it is per day. And the guys that work there, I use the word guys, I only saw one person working there. And it's kind of like when you bring your bag up to, like, you're gonna go check in. On a regular airport, they put it through this radar thing. Well, at this airport, you walk up to this guy sitting at a desk. He says, "Set your bag up here, son." So I did. And he starts going through it. Little by little, he's just kind of looking through it. Seems to be okay. No problems. So he picks the bag up, walks it over to the conveyor belt. sets it on the conveyor, moves it up into the little x-ray machine he's got there. Now, I don't know what he's looking for. He didn't find anything in my bag that was worth arguing about. So when he's done looking at the bag, he lets the conveyor run down to the end. It's only about 10 feet or so. But at that point, he picks the bag off the conveyor, sets it on a little cart, then he comes back over, sits down at that little desk of his, and says, "Next." And that's about how it works there. They just know that ain't going to be too many people. Don't need to have, you know, any rush to get anywhere. So when he gets all done, there's about 8 or 9 of us sitting in the chairs. And I think this was some sort of like a Delta flight or something. Because he had to read this whole list of different ways that people were going to board. You know, he says, well, first of all, we're going to take anybody who has a wheelchair. Well, none of us has got a wheelchair there. Then we're going to take any children under the age of 5. And we're looking around, and there's no children there. And he says, when we're going to go through our different classes. We're going to go first class. We're looking at each other. There's nobody in first class. I don't think they have a first class. There's only 10 seats on the plane. And then he says, then we have the Delta preferred customers. We're all just looking at each other. Then he says, well, now we're gonna load the select business class. And a handful of us were looking at each other and looking at him. He's got his clipboard. He's got to read what he's got to read, I guess. Then when he gets done with that, he says, after we load all those people, then we're going to load all the rest of you. And then he goes like, that's you guys there. Come on. Let's get on the plane. So we get on the plane, you know, on the runway that's right next to the parking lot. And so doesn't he like close the plane up? And then he goes around front and does one of those flashlight thingies, you know, where they wave the flashlight and the pilot knows where you got to go. So I think he's the only employee there. I mean, he handled the bags, he read the thing, he boarded the plane, and the only thing left to do was jump on with us, but he didn't. He had to stay there because tomorrow sometime there was going to be a flight coming in, and he's got to get the people off the plane. And that's what the Yooper Airport's like, you know. Not too busy, pretty laid back. And it was a good flight back. Enjoyed it. Another clear day. Beautiful flying over Lake Michigan. Looking down onto some of the different islands and things. So, thinking about going back up there again. I'd be very happy to fly into that Yooper Airport one more time. All right, so let's see if Fish Whisperer can't catch a fish here.